Okay, so I'm using Esther, chapter 4, verse 8 through chapter 5, verse 1 as the text for the message this morning. I'd encourage you to pause the video and read it before going on. Actually, if you can, you might want to read the whole book of Esther before you watch this video. It's a fascinating story that actually should inspire a ton of questions if you're paying attention. Most of us are very familiar with the story of Esther. Unfortunately, our familiarity with this brave young lady has been corrupted by movie portrayals and children's books and cartoon tellings of the story. Our favorite portrayals of the story typically cast a young King Ahasuerus or King Xerxes. He's fit, royal looking, handsome and muscular and strong. The kind of guy the ladies all want to meet and the parents want for a son-in-law. Hadassah, also known as Esther, is portrayed as an exotically attractive, single, young adult. We imagine her being the first of the virgin maidens to be selected for a nighttime audience with the king. Their eyes meet across the gently flickering flame of a romantically decorated bedchamber, and it's gentle love at first sight. Well, I'm about to bust that bubble. Ahasuerus, or Xerxes, is no teenager or young adult for that matter. He's probably middle-aged, probably in his 40s at least. The book of Esther begins in the third year of his reign with Xerxes throwing an extravagantly wasteful, drunken bash, trying to show off how rich he is, according to Esther chapter 1, verse 4. Drinks are served in golden cups, and people are encouraged to drink without restraint. 7 days into this party, having shown off his gold and silver and jewels and precious stones, and now soundly drunk Xerxes decides he wants to show off his wife, Queen Vashti, to all the drunken men in the room, like she's another one of his possessions. Esther chapter 1, verse 10. Queen Vashti wisely refuses. Verse 12. Think room full of drunken men and a husband who thinks of you as property, right? It doesn't matter that he starts out as a happy drunk. Xerxes quickly becomes an enraged drunk, and in a fit of drunken and childish rage, he banishes his wife Vashti. Some suggest, based on the wording, that he may have had her killed, though no one really knows for sure. We're not told how long it takes for him to sober up and realize what he's done. His method of courting another wife is to gather all the beautiful young virgins in the kingdom, like he's the only eligible man in the kingdom, imprison them in his harem. None of them is ever allowed to return home again, and basically flip through them one by one until he finds one he likes. There is very little anywhere in the story to suggest that Xerxes was a man of character, wisdom, virtue, kindness, or gentleness. Historians report that this is the guy who, when a storm destroyed bridges he had built in anticipation of a military engagement, he got so angry he had the sea whipped with chains as punishment. and shackled, apparently, although reportedly they just sank to the bottom. Nobody wants this guy as a son-in-law. You know, I know it's a more comfortable story of Esther is in her 20s and the king is in his early 30s, and they fall deeply and passionately in love and live their lives as soulmates. But that's just not the case. Now, I don't want to further ruin the story for you, but some historians estimate that Esther was around 14 years old when she was rounded up and basically imprisoned to await the king's pleasure. Yep. Kind of changes the story a little, doesn't it? Even if it was common for young ladies to be married in their mid-teens in those days, that doesn't help. A young, already orphaned girl is now basically a slave, a concubine. This is not a joyful, happy Disney story. Just in case you think Xerxes suddenly became a good man once married to Esther, a patient and loving, loyal husband, keep a couple things in mind. In chapter 2, verse 16, he marries Esther and makes her queen in the 10th month of the 7th year of his reign. Verse 17 says he loved her more than all the women. But in verse 19, he ordered a second roundup of young virgins. But that's not the only example of his character. Someone saves his life in Esther chapter 6. He totally forgets to even thank the person. Haman offers to destroy an entire population of his kingdom, loyal subjects, and his response is to hand Haman the royal signet ring, basically saying, whatever, man. Just go, whatever. I just don't want to know about it. Told right, I'm not sure this is a movie I want my children watching, and they're adults. I'm not so sure I want to watch it. There is nothing pretty in this story. These were dark and dangerous times for the people of God in general, and incredibly horrible, lonely times for the young Hadassah, who would be called Esther. She's already an orphan when she's ripped from the only family she knows. She can't even tell anyone who she really is, that she is a descendant of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin, related to Israel's first king, a daughter in Israel. When her cousin Mordecai sends word of what is happening beyond the palace and commands her to go to the king, do not fault Esther for refusing his demand in 4 verse 8. Xerxes is a self-centered, self-serving, womanizing creep, and that's as polite as I can put it. And the times are brutal. On top of all of this, there are rules that govern court life. There are the old devious politicking advisors of the king to navigate. No doubt there are jealous women in the harem who would love to take her place. Then there's the fact that Haman, the man that she's trying to expose as being wicked, has been promoted to the highest position in the kingdom, second only to the king, and has been given absolute power and already been given the go-ahead to erase her people. But Esther recognizes that there are more lives at stake than just her own. The lives of the people of God are at risk. Such a time as this. Still, there is no way this young lady can do what needs doing without having something solid at the core of her life. In fact, how is it possible that she has even survived this long in this context? It might not be spelled out, but there is no way she does not have a strong, consistent, ongoing relationship with the God of her forefathers. She does not flounder when the time comes. She does not snivel or whimper. You don't hear her whining, I don't know what to do, or why is this happening to me? In fact, I suggest she refuses Mordecai's command, not because she's unwilling to intervene, but because it's a dumb idea. Go right now, beg the king for mercy in front of Haman. I mean, what kind of a dumb idea is that? Esther sends back a command of her own in chapter 4, around verse 15. She says, tell cousin Mordecai, you go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf. Do not eat and do not drink for 3 days, night or day. And I and the young ladies who are with me will fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. Notice, Esther doesn't need to pray for wisdom. She doesn't ask God to raise up someone to help out here. She doesn't look for a prophet. Her prayer is one of preparation. We pray, and I will go. Everything that follows in this story is wisdom and grace and Spirit of God, birthed from the life of a young lady who has lived the worst of her times, but managed to somehow maintain faith in God. At this point, she is estimated to be in her late teens, perhaps no older than 20. And just as a refresher, she's lost everything. Her parents, the home where she was raised, her freedom, her purity, and because of her gender, her culture, and circumstances, she is culturally powerless and invisible. But these are her times. So what does this have to do with hearing God? Isn't that what the series is about, hearing God? Well, everything. And I hope you'll eventually see that. Esther didn't wait for the preachers or the prophets or the rabbis, the scribes or religious leaders to save her people. Her prayer was not, God, help the prophets and the preachers to do what needs doing. She doesn't even pray, God, what do I do? She knows what needs to happen. Someone needs to confront the king and expose Haman. She doesn't even ask, why me? She just owns it. She fasts and prays that God would grant her the strength to do what needs doing. And in so doing, makes a difference in the lives of an entire nation. Remember David facing Goliath? He didn't need to pray first either. Remember Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? They didn't need to seek direction. Remember Daniel thrown in the lion's den? In each case, their willingness to be the one to step up and make a difference, to step up and live faithful, it makes the difference in countless lives. How is it that we seem helplessly lost with what to do in the midst of our times when these young men and women seem to pray not for direction, but for strength to do what they knew needed doing? What level of intimacy must they have had with the Father? Listen, every follower of Jesus Christ has this in common with Esther. We are called to live the life of Christ, a faithful life before God in the midst of our times, right where we have landed, even if we have landed where we have landed because of cruelty and wickedness, poor choices, or the abuse of, or the power of others, even if, especially if our times are difficult. So, what defines our times? I'm not sure when you're watching this, but I'm recording it during the pandemic lockdown in Canada, where for a season we've been asked to hold off gathering in our churches for a season for the common good, where I can still use technology to see the faces of my brothers and sisters. Yeah, at times it's blurry and jumpy, but I can still see their faces as we gather together over Zoom or live through various technological means. What defines my times? I am in Canada, where my neighbors are also confined to their homes, are frightened and nervous and lonely and anxious, where uncertainty reigns and hopelessness is growing, where a note, a letter, a phone call can make all the difference. And look, I have pen and paper to write a note, and a computer to make a video call, and a phone to make a phone call, and breath in my lungs and Christ in my heart. Do I really need to ask God what needs to be done in this season? Or should I maybe just be praying for the strength to do what needs doing? One final question. Given our times, given the times that you are in right now, whenever it is that you are watching this, what one thing could you do today that might make a difference for someone else? I'll ask it again. What one thing could you do today that might make a difference for someone else? I want to suggest to you that thing that you identified, that is the voice of God speaking to you. And I would encourage you, when this video is done, to shut the computer down and do it.